Unmute the Discord, and we are live.
Oh yes, let me unmute in the Discord. We are live. It is March 14th. That is wild. We are just a couple weeks away from Q1 of 2023 already being over. And what a fun Q1 it's been. And I'm sure there'll be even more to talk about over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy times out here, and people have missed us the last 2 weeks is what I'm hearing. So 1 week you were traveling. The week before that I didn't have internet, and we were just talking about it. I still don't have internet. I'm on a hotspot and it's working surprisingly well.
Hotspot.
Yeah, so they've got to dig new internet lines for me, and
That's
that
wild.
could take, yeah, I mean, they said it could take 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, and I just frantically went out looking for options to get internet for, it took me like 4 or 5 days, and then I found out that T-Mobile has this new internet that's based solely on 5G. So I went to T-Mobile, bought a router, and I'm getting like 100 megabytes down, so I'll take it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it'll do until I get my real internet going.
That's just crazy too. Like, that's funny. They literally got to fucking lay lines for you to have internet.
Yeah, it's wild. It was a battle trying to get them to agree to it.
Well, speaking of wild, obviously a lot of wild things happened in the markets over the last 72 hours. Between bank failures and depegs and all the things. There was some easy opportunities, some free money out there that some of us took advantage of with the depeg.
Yep.
I definitely did not.
Mitch bought some USDC.
I did, but I didn't think to really be smart and just do that shit on futures where I could have leveraged. I don't know why it didn't go through my brain. I just did spot, even exchange. So, but
Profit
yeah,
is
I gambled.
profit,
Yeah, I gambled. And flipped some USDT into USDC when it was at 91.5 cents, and waited for us to get back. I didn't wait for the full peg. Because Sunday night I saw we were at 98.5, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna wait for the banks to open Monday morning. This is good enough. Let me get it out of Dodge just in case something goes the wrong direction. And on top of the fact that I actually already had most of my stables were in USDC, so that also just took less exposure off. But yeah, there was an opportunity. I know a lot of other people took that gamble, so to speak, betting that we would return to the peg, which we did.
We did.
And then,
yeah, I wrote a post about that. I said no, USDC is not going to zero, and
I read that post.
Yeah, I was very convinced. I didn't end up making a play on it, which I really should have, but I was just too busy. But yeah, I was very confident that nothing was going to happen. So
I agreed.
But yeah, I even called the I should have made a lot of things, this always happens in trading, but I was very confident. If you read, I wrote a couple of posts during all this bank stuff because people were kind of freaking out. And I definitely, being in DeFi and just being interested in finance in general, I love like reading about banks and what they're doing and, just trying to understand it. So I wrote a couple of different posts as everything was kind of unfolding. And in those posts, I kept talking about how I thought that these banks were going to get basically bailed out by Monday. And that's exactly what happened. They all got, they all got government backed, or, they didn't really get bailed out, but they got like backstopped by the Fed on Sunday.
Hold on. Is it, and I haven't checked any updates since yesterday. I thought basically the deposits and whatnot were guaranteed, but they essentially let the banks fail.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why it's not like a bailout. They just got backstopped, right? So they, the banks are going to go under, but anyone who held money at the banks is fine. Like you said, depositors aren't going to lose a penny.
I mean, so it is a bailout, but they just basically bailed out the depositors
People.
and the clients and basically told that banks to kick rocks, which I mean,
Exactly.
probably is how it should be. Probably is what should have happened in 2008, and especially is what happened because these banks were crypto friendly. So let your conspiracy theories fly, people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the crazy thing is that if you look at the balance sheets of these banks, and I listened to the All In podcast,
Yep.
with a couple of huge VCs that basically are the hosts of the podcast, and they were showing a bunch of charts and data on the actual balance sheet holdings of these banks, and these banks were not insolvent. They were not insolvent, and if there was no bank run, they would not have been insolvent at any point.
Correct.
And even with the bank runs, with the balance sheets that they had, they easily could have raised money and had the liquidity, because the basic problem was, like, if you look at Silicon Valley Bank as the main example, they were holding 10-year mortgage debt, and obviously if they sell that, they take a huge hit on them. So the thing that caused all of this was that they did sell some in order to get liquidity, and they lost $2 billion or something. And that's basically what sparked all of this, was that, oh, why are they selling off assets? It's because they have no liquidity. If you hold money there, pull all your money out, or you might not get any of it back. And then the bank run, the thing about bank runs is that they're self-fulfilling. So but when you look at that balance sheet, like, this Silicon Valley Bank could have easily raised billions of dollars against all the assets that they were holding that were illiquid. And I just think that they easily could have raised money if the government allowed them some time, and potentially maybe the government should have loaned them money at some like horrendous interest rate. And if the government was run like a better business, that's what they would have done. They would have lent them money at a really high interest rate, made a shit ton of money, and the government makes money, then the bank doesn't go under, everybody's happy, depositors have money to withdraw. And I just think there's a lot of better solutions out there than what unfolded. But at no point was I really actually all that concerned that people who had money in the bank were going to lose money. There's way too much pressure, because this is not like some fringe bank in the middle of nowhere. This is like it was the 16th largest bank in the United States. So, and then obviously them going under then led to other banks going under. So, if there was definitely systemic risk that was going to happen there.
Yep. And yeah, I agree. Like, they didn't need to go out of business. Money could have been raised, but instead bank run happened, and really no one extended anything essentially to them.
Yeah.
So, which I mean is fine. Like, not everything needs to be fucking saved or
Right.
helped.
Some things can fail for sure.
It's just funny how, like, usually they always do, but it's just irony that crypto friendly banks are not getting the hand extended out to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing about all of this is that the conspiracy almost lines up a little bit too well, that these were, the top 3 crypto institutions in the United States that were servicing like on-ramps and off-ramps for fiat to crypto. And, combining that with this whole thesis that, especially during COVID, the government's been basically using a lot of different things that have been happening as an excuse to consolidate power. And, you could definitely make a really good argument that this happening and stuff like this is going to keep happening, all kind of plays into this role of, like, there's going to be a few like top 3 banks in the world, and they're going to, consume all of this power. And, you can definitely bet that this is bullish for things like JP Morgan. And you can go run away with your conspiracy theories on that. It's pretty crazy. And then, Blue Robo was saying Jason Calacanis is one of the hosts for All In, and he was actively spreading panic. One thing I don't love about him is that he tends to play the role of like a little bit of like a virtue signaling kind of like person that like maybe reads into media a little bit too much and tends to be like more on this new society type of wave. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people contributed to that bank run, and you know, he probably had
Oh,
some
100%.
contribution.
I mean, you create essentially panic and then everyone rushes for the exits.
Yep.
I mean, you see it. I mean, it's more, you can manipulate that more in crypto, which is like what we've seen. And that's essentially almost, you know, kind of what happened with FTX.
Yeah.
To
Well, and
get the ball rolling.
these banks could have easily been saved if the government had instantly come out and said, you know, we've looked at the balance sheet. There's plenty of money here. They're not insolvent. You know, yes, they do hold a lot of, you know, long dated equities and stuff on their balance sheet. And perhaps that's something that we should fine them for not having, you know, but the thing was that these banks were fully compliant. So is it, that's what I wrote in an article today. Like, is it is the problem the banks and how they were running, or is the problem compliance standards? And I ended up saying that it's probably a little bit of both. That the bank didn't have good risk management, but also they were still up to compliance standards. But you know, all the Fed had to do was come out and say, you know, we're going to backstop all deposits. There is 0% chance if you're holding money in this bank that you're going to lose money. And then immediately the redemptions would have slowed down immediately. You know, like think about if you're holding $10 million at this bank and you're thinking, oh, I got to run for the exits, but then, you know, the government comes out and guarantees your 10 million, you're not going to be as inclined to just withdraw it right away. You know, some people definitely will, but, you know, that would have easily saved the bank run. It would have easily stopped it. And, you know, it's not like we were looking at a bank that had no assets on their balance sheet and was just bleeding money and couldn't service deposits. So couldn't service, you know, the deposited capital. It wasn't like that. It was just that they were basically just a little bit too illiquid. And then as soon as news broke out that maybe they were too illiquid to service withdrawals, then, you know, bank run happens, and within a day they were put under.
Yep. Well, and the reality is every single bank that exists could be taken out by a bank run.
Right. Anything
theory.
can be taken out. Yeah.
Like in theory, JP Morgan could get taken out by a bank run. I mean, obviously it'd have to be the sickest bank run in history, but
right.
The reality is, you know, because it all goes back to fucking, you know, fractional banking. And it's like, none of these banks have the majority of this money on hand. They have a very small minority of the money on hand. So
yeah.
Without government intervention and with a coordinated big bank run, every bank technically is at risk of that happening.
100%. Yeah.
You know, the reality of it happening to, you know, like the big 3 or 4 banks is pretty much non-existent, but in theory, it could happen. Like it technically, fundamentally could happen.
Yeah. You would just need a ton of withdrawals.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's the self-fulfilling. You get one person to yell fire and everybody starts running.
Yep.
But yeah, so basically so that's what happened last week. Then obviously we saw, you know, the whole USDC thing with, you know, basically the news came out that Circle, which issues USDC, held an undisclosed amount of up to, you know, $9 billion at Silicon Valley Bank. And they didn't have, this is the problem, I think, with USDC and Circle, is that they should have immediately come out and said, we hold 3 billion of the 9 billion. It's not 9 billion, it's 3. That definitely would have helped USDC a little bit, I think, because a lot of people were thinking it was actually 9 billion. But 3 billion was a blow that USDC definitely could have sustained. Like it's they at the time I was looking at this, they had about 43 billion on in their reserves, and so 3 billion made up 8% of that. And if you did the math on, you know, some of the interest that they were earning on all the other, you know, $40 billion, because obviously they hold it in bonds and you know other investment vehicles that pay them interest, a few percent a year. You know, they would have easily made up that 3 billion. And there were other options too, right? Like they could have raised 3 billion, they could have issued debt and, you know, raised 3 billion, and they had definitely other options there. You know, losing 8% of your reserves is not going to put the whole stable coin under. But you know, same thing with the bank runs, is that you get enough people running for the exits and things can go spiral down pretty quickly. So USDC dropped to like 90 cents or something. And then so then fast forward to Sunday, and the Fed came out with a statement and said that they basically were shutting down Silicon Valley Bank and a few of the other ones, but they were going to guarantee all the deposits. And as soon as that statement came out, Bitcoin started ripping. So Bitcoin dropped to like 20K. I think the low that I saw was like 19.5, something like that. And then from there, everything just kind of started mooning again. So Bitcoin went from there to like what, 22K. And then at market open today, just ripped to 26. And the S&P is up 1%, NASDAQ's up 1.75. And they were up even more earlier. When I wrote my post this morning, they were up 2% and 3%. So
Yeah, the equities market is actually going to give back the whole day's move. It's right back where it opened. So it's still up, but it literally just did a full round trip from opening price to this last hour or so, hour and a half, just dumped it all back.
Yeah.
It's still up,
So
obviously 1%, but
yeah, so I'm pretty confident, you know, if you check my post, I'm pretty confident that this whole move is basically just, you know, the FUD is over about the banks, and now, you know, there's some light at the end of the tunnel in terms of interest rate hikes. And I think that's pretty much the driver of this move, is that some people are thinking that this could be the catalyst for the Fed to stop raising interest rates and potentially reverse course sooner rather than later. So I think most of us were kind of expecting that they would reverse course by the end of this year, but I think this probably accelerated it. The question is, will they actually, you know, reverse course? You know, and I think a lot of people are going to be watching this March meeting.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens now. Obviously, with the inflation data that came out today, that was pretty much in line with expectations. So that's, you know, technically a win. And then what happened with the banks and everything, I saw the percentage for the odds changed a lot in terms of what they're going to do. So a week ago, a 50 basis point increase like shot up to the majority percentage. That since has changed, and now 25% is the majority again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next week. Obviously, I'm rooting for 25 basis points because, well, these increasing interest rates are freaking killing me in real estate. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting times for everything.
Indeed. Trying to think economic wise, if there's anything out there else that we haven't covered. You know, March was obviously a rough month so far for equities. The action in crypto has been really interesting, obviously, with Bitcoin now ripping the last 4 days. But I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the volatility has just been off the charts.
Yeah, it really pumped up recently. You know, we hit that 25K back in February, that resistance, you know, failed there, which was no surprise. I kind of assumed that we'd fail there the first time. And then ended up coming, you know, almost pretty much back down to that support. I mean, we did touch 20 and just into 19s. So, I mean, if you look at the chart, yeah, like 19 to 20 is really the support. And then obviously the last 3 days have just been crazy, ripping higher. And I will say, like, the volume kicked up though. So if you look at like the move that we had back in January when we came off the lows and got back into the low 20s, that was on increasing volume. And that lasted, 4 or 5 days. And right now, volume's up yesterday and today. With these big body green candles. So we'll see. Obviously, it's going to exhaust at some point, like the volume will come back down. So I'm really interested to see if this candle holds above like 25.2. We still got, about 5-6 hours before this candle closes. So I'm keeping my eye on that. I don't have any short side protection at this point. I had covered my hedge at 20, which was nice. That really couldn't have got any better price than I did. So
Yeah, I've definitely got a few shorts on.
I'm thinking about potentially maybe adding some now again, like some short hedges, because this is pretty crazy rip. And it really depends on if we close above 25 or not. But I might throw on a little tiny one because that capital is free. We talked about this pre-call, obviously, in terms of buying Bitcoin down to 20K. I'm glad I at least bought a little bit more. I know you bought as well. So, I mean,
yep,
that couldn't have worked out any better. I mean, shit, it's not often you buy into something and then it rips, 20% immediately. So take those wins where you can get them.
Yeah, I saw Bitcoin drop down to 20K, and I had some orders in too that got filled, some limit orders on the way down.
Nice.
And but yeah, I definitely, when I saw it hit 20K, I just kind of pulled the trigger on some, like a bigger chunk. And I was telling you pre-show is that one of the reasons was I was a little bit worried about like a flash crash in Bitcoin. Because that's essentially like another form of bank run, right? Is like if if people get scared enough, you can have like this crazy. We've seen it plenty of times. It's a lot less prevalent now than it was, years ago when there was a lot less liquidity out there. But it's still definitely possible that you can have like this crazy flash crash. The one that I remember the most was that flash crash on MakerDAO, where Bitcoin basically dropped to like, I think it was like 3K or something. That liquidated a ton of vaults. So I at 20K, I just kind of threw a big chunk into Bitcoin and then threw that into my vault on MakerDAO just to be safe against a flash crash. That's why I always talk about, whenever I talk about those vaults, I always tell people to make sure that you're not over leveraged and to the point where like if you have to like add a bunch of Bitcoin to that vault, your vault shouldn't be so oversized compared to your like liquid, dry powder that you can't easily cover it, right? So
Yeah,
definitely got to be careful with those vaults. They can be dangerous, but they're very, that's what we're talking about, is they're very, very useful for a lot of different reasons. But you definitely have to be very careful about how you use them.
Oh yeah. Excuse me. The only thing, no other wild card, and I guess it really doesn't matter, but is that it's not native Bitcoin and it's WBTC, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So not as much of a fan, but I guess in the end, it doesn't really matter. It's Ethereum based Bitcoin, and Ethereum's clearly not going anywhere.
Right.
So.
And I would definitely keep my, I wouldn't put all my Bitcoin there for sure. Wow. But I do tend to trust it.
Some of us might need to put most of their Bitcoin there in order to do these loans. So everyone's not Bitcoin like Khal.
Just got to keep dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin.
This is true. I know. I do my random buys, and in the long run, I'm better off just setting it and forgetting it.
100%.
All right. Well, it's probably a good time to transition into all things CUB and LeoFinance. It has been a couple of weeks, so You may even have some LeoFinance updates, obviously with the alpha site. I'm sure more things have been released, but additionally, I'm sure people want to hear updates in regards to CUB finance and the kingdoms and all that goodness. So feel free to jump into whichever if you have updates for LeoFinance, or we can talk about CUB.
Yeah, so let's start with CUB, and then are they saying that I'm muted? Can you guys hear me now?
You're not showing as muted.
It doesn't say
I
I'm
hear
muted.
you.
Let's see what they say.
That's odd.
Let me just.
Oh yeah, you're not lighting up on Discord.
How about now?
Doesn't show you lighting up. You might have to go to your voice settings.
Very interesting. It was working 10 seconds ago.
Yeah, that's happened to me before. Might want to check the voice settings. Sometimes Discord just gets stupid.
All right. How are we doing? Yeah, I'm lighting up now. I think we're good.
There you go.
So with CUB, right? Damn it, he's back. Yep. Sorry, you guys are stuck with me. Khal's back again.
Yes. So he can say soon when you say when.
I should learn sign language for soon. So even if I get muted, I can sign it to you guys.
There you go. In fact, I'm pretty disappointed with the lack of wins. I mean, yeah, the lack of wins for the soons.
So
you guys are getting soft.
Yeah, they're getting soft. Or maybe we're just delivering so much that they can't keep up.
Exactly.
So with CUB, there's been a lot of happenings with CUB kingdoms. And basically, one of the major issues is that kingdoms are really cool in that they allow everybody to basically pool assets across different platforms, right? So like, for example, you can pool Bitcoin on the CUB kingdom and it will pool it actually in Belt, which is another platform on Binance Smart Chain. So that's really cool. The problem with that is that when Belt decides to change stuff, or any other platform that is supported by kingdoms decides to change stuff, we have to keep up with them. We got to keep up with the Joneses, right? So when they change something, we got to change something. When they change something that creates like a reliant API for us, something breaks on the CUB UI and we got to fix it. And basically, every month there was like some new issue. And eventually it got so bad that one of the issues became that people were having trouble withdrawing. So, Mitch knows this. Everybody who uses kingdoms knows this, that for basically the past like 2 months, it's been like off and on. Like sometimes you'd be able to withdraw, sometimes you get a contract error. And it was nothing really like serious on our back end. It was more just that everything was like a lot of like RPC API, and then obviously with the front end, just a lot of different types of issues. And we were just playing whack-a-mole with all these issues. And so it basically created a situation where like you might try to do something to even deposit to the CUB kingdom, not the CUB kingdom, but any of the other kingdoms on CUB. And you would try to do something and it wouldn't let you. It would kick you back an error on the UI. So eventually, basically all the devs were talking and just kind of decided like we need to just stop supporting kingdoms, because this is only it's only going to get worse over time as platforms keep making more and more changes. So basically we all made the decision, let's just stop supporting kingdoms. And if you actually take a broader look at things, BHBD and Beehive have been creating a lot of value for CUB. And I've been kind of loosely teasing it, but this month I think is going to be the just looking at the numbers, the first deflationary month for CUB. So we're going to burn more CUB than is issued this month, which is something we've been working towards since August 2022, which is when BHBD and Beehive launched. And we've kind of been building up. If you see the revenue, it's kind of been like I think I forgot the first month, but it was like $2,000, then it was $3,000, $5,000, $7,000. And the monthly revenue from BHBD and Beehive and then the arbitrage has been just steadily growing and growing and growing. And, you know, I've been really pushing the devs really hard on getting us to that deflationary place, especially from the point of view of the arbitrage mechanics and everything. You know, when I saw that light at the end of the tunnel for CUB to be deflationary, you know, I really hit the gas, and I'm happy that I did. I'm happy that I did hit the gas, because I think when we do actually see it hit deflationary, it's going to really change the mindset and the sentiment around CUB. Because basically the problem with CUB has been, and this is the problem with all DeFi platforms that launched at the same time, which, you know, 99% of them don't even exist anymore. So the fact that CUB even exists is already goes to show you how strong the community is. But 99% of them failed because there's all this rampant inflation, and that inflation is meant to incentivize liquidity, and that liquidity is meant to drive value back to the platform. So, you know, if you're paying, you know, $5,000, or like, let's just use CUB numbers because we've got them. If you're paying $15,000 a month in LP rewards, which is what we're paying on CUB, right? There's, you know, about 840,000 CUB that gets created every month, and it gets paid to LPs. Comes out to about 15 grand. So you're paying about 15 grand a month to have liquidity. Is that liquidity generating more than 15 grand a month? And that's how you determine if CUB as a DAO business type of setup, since it's, you know, all autonomous, decentralized, is profitable. Because if that DAO contract can earn more than 15,000, which is what it's paying to LPs, then it's, you know, a profitable DAO. And, you know, we've been I mean, like prior to BHBD and Beehive, we were, the DAO was probably making like under $200 a month. So it was paying over $15,000 a month in rewards, making under 200. Obviously that's a problem. That's why the CUB price kept going down, down, down. Since the launch of BHBD Beehive, like I said, you know, you were at $2,000, $3,000, $6,000, $7,000, kept going up and up. And this month it's looking like we're going to flip and have more revenue than is paid out through the rewards pool. So we'll be able to see that on the next burn report, which I already teased is coming out on April 6th. So that next burn report will talk about, you know, how we've burnt all this CUB, and you know, if the numbers stay the way they are right now, we are essentially going to see deflationary CUB. So we'll see more than, like, it's like 850,000, 840,000 CUB per month that's created, and we'll see more than that burned in March. And I'm very excited to see that. Hopefully the price of CUB stays a little bit low. Obviously, like, the amount of CUB that we can buy back and burn also is kind of coincides with the value of CUB, because as the value of CUB goes down, it's easier to flip deflationary because then it requires less dollars, right? But this kind of creates like this interesting, like, equalizing system where if, like, let's say we flip deflationary and then people get excited, you know, CUB starts to kind of look different sentiment wise, and the price of CUB goes up. It's going to be hard to be deflationary that next month, because then, you know, the price of CUB is higher. The DAO can only buy so much CUB back, right? So if the next month it's not deflationary, then maybe the price comes back down a little bit, then it goes back to deflationary. And then it kind of plays like this game where it's flipping back and forth between deflationary and not deflationary. And what ultimately should end up happening is that, you know, the positive trend line of CUB should be trending upwards. And that trend upwards means that the, you know, the value of the CUB that's being paid out goes up, which means that the APY in all the BHBD and Beehive pools goes up, which means that more BHBD and Beehive gets pooled, which means more liquidity, which means that the revenue goes up, which means that the amount that can be burned goes up. And it kind of, you want to see that pinwheel effect. So that's really what we're shooting for. That's what I'm pushing the devs hard for, in all the ways that we have power over things. Yeah, that's where I hope we're headed. Kingdoms, we've already deprecated all of the Kingdoms rewards. So all the Kingdoms rewards, you might notice that the APY for BHBD and Beehive farms have gone up a little bit. All the rewards for kingdoms are now being paid to the farms. And then we have, I was telling Mitch about this, but we've been working to get the withdrawing and the UI all set so that it's, we need to fix all these issues. And it's been multiple days of like trying to fix all the different issues that kingdoms have, just so we can finally get everybody out and then just delete kingdoms from our life. We got one more update to deploy, and the devs are pretty confident that this last update will fix the rest of the issues. Yeah, so once that update gets deployed, everything should be fixed on the kingdom's end, at least for the next, couple of months, until one of these contracts decides to change something again. Then we might have to deploy another fix if there's any capital left. But yeah, so hopefully tomorrow around this time, because it's, it was 24 hours from like 3 hours ago. So tomorrow around this time, you should be all good to go to get out of kingdoms, and, you can move into BHBD, Beehive, or move into whatever else you want. That's the kingdoms update, and pretty much the whole update for CUB. So I'm excited to see CUB deflationary in March. I think we're going to make it happen, but let's see.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like a very different narrative than what has happened on CUB and all the platforms like CUB. I don't know of another platform that was able to achieve what we're about to achieve. And it's very unique to our situation because of our connection to Hive and all the technology we built in the past, like, B-Leo, W-Leo, P-Leo, and then Beehive, BHBD. All this stuff was very much like, it was like a painful learning process, but it took us going through all these paces to get where we are now. And I think that makes CUB a very unique platform in terms of all the other DeFi platforms that are out there. Because, name me another DeFi platform that has such a strong connection to another blockchain, like the way that CUB is connected to Hive. So I think that is like the unique value proposition of CUB. And we're going to see that kind of vision fulfilled as soon as CUB flips deflationary. And hopefully deflationary for, several months, we can start to actually eat away at a lot of the inflation that was created over the last, CUB, I think we might have actually missed the 2-year anniversary of CUB. Didn't CUB launch in March 2020?
We might have missed the anniversary.
I think we did.
It definitely launched in March.
Yeah, I think it was like March 8th, 2020. Someone probably knows.
Was it 12? You mean 2021?
2021. Yeah. 2021.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was something like that. March 8th,
definitely
2021.
March. Yeah.
CUB's been out here for 2 years. That's, a lot of these DeFi platforms didn't last 2 months. So, I actually am very bullish on CUB, but don't take my word for it. Just let it flip deflationary and make your own decisions later.
At the same time, it's not like you're an unbiased party.
I'm very biased. I'm very biased. Yeah, extremely.
Well, the goal is to get the flippening, to get deflationary. And I personally expect that to just continue to grow. It wasn't like, the goal is to like flip and then it's like, all right, sweet, we made it. And then it's like, everything just stops. Like the goal is to continue to build revenue and continue to bring liquidity into the farms, which therefore leads to more burns. And, and it's one of the reasons why, I'm bullish on CUB, not so much for even like, mooning in price, but more so just being able to like maintain, like not just slowly, erode in price like pretty much every DeFi coin does.
Yeah.
So
we want to see the opposite. We want to see a trend.
Yeah. Up. I don't, I have no idea where this coin can go or may level out, but that's really for me a desired state where it's just like, I know there's a certain range at least that it's going to be in for the most part. But it'll be interesting to see how things play out. I guess really in Q2, given that it looks like we're going to flip here at the end of Q1.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what happens. I think it's going to create hopefully it will create a very different perception of what, CUB can achieve long term. we've always talked about the vision of CUB being to create a sustainable, reliable, and growing platform for DeFi. Because, you know, go back to the DeFi craze, and what we all were interested in was how do we get into a platform where we can, you know, pool capital and reliably earn income on it. Like that's what we all want here in crypto. And, you know, that's what CUB sets out to achieve through, you know, all the different smart contracts that that all the devs get to, you know, submit and, you know, approve and test out. And that's where, you know, kingdoms actually were the original vision of, you know, can we launch something where the management fees overtake the inflation? And kingdoms did not work for that. The management fees were never high enough. But BHBD Beehive was, I think BHBD Beehive is the breakthrough moment for CUB. And you can see that in the revenue growing, you know, it's growing like 20% month over month, like, you know, month one, $2,000, like I said, and it just keeps growing and growing. And that doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon.
Nice. Do we have any updates in regards to Threads and Alpha LeoFinance?
Yeah, so since the AMA has been out for 2 weeks, we have a pretty big update that we pushed, which was polling. So now you can launch fully decentralized polls on the the Hive blockchain directly through Threads. So it's actually, I mean, to me, it's like a killer feature for Threads. And the reason why is that I think it shows us and it shows the community that Threads and, you know, the whole new Project Blank UI and LeoFinance, the new vision for LeoFinance to be this everything app is really coming into focus. And you can see that, like, you know, if you rewind the tape 6 months ago, LeoFinance, you went there, you could create long form content and you could engage with long form content. That's pretty much it. Now you go to LeoFinance and you see, you know, something that looks like Twitter, and you can create microblogs, you can engage with them, and it's created this whole new layer of engagement. You also still can do long form content. You still can read, engage, write long form content. And now you also can run decentralized polls. And there's been other platforms on, you know, Steam and Hive that have tried to do like decentralized polling using, you know, Hive blockchain technology to do it. And, you know, the fact that we just baked that whole thing, we basically just built a whole new app and built it into Threads. And that is really the new vision of LeoFinance. Is like, if you go back over, you know, LeoFinance has been around for about 3 or 4 years now. And over these years, we've built all sorts of different apps. I mean, we've built probably 20 different applications on you know, Hive, on Ethereum, on Binance Smart Chain, on Polygon. We've built all sorts of new applications, and we've always been kind of on the edge of, you know, testing things and trying to find things that work and can bring value, you know, ultimately bridge value back to the Leo token. And, you know, as a community, that's just been really awesome. Like, you know, just always kind of looking out for the next thing and everyone contributing to that, you know, and building towards it. And, you know, with Threads and what we're doing now, it's very much like, rather than like, we could have built a whole, I mean, if you look at the work we had to do on the back end and the front end to get decentralized polls to work, we could have built an entirely new application that was just for polls. And you could launch a poll, and you can, you know, obviously you get people to vote on them and everything like that. That could have been a whole other app, especially from a development perspective and all the work that went into it. But instead of doing a whole new app, we just added it as a feature to LeoFinance. And I think that's the new vision. And that's what gets me really excited, is that all these different things are baked into that. And if you look at Elon and what he talks about with his vision for Twitter, it's very much the same thing. And I'm definitely pulling a lot of inspiration from that, which is that, you know, you can build finance, you can build, you know, chatting, you can build, you know, polls. And he's even talking about incorporating like all sorts of crazy features directly into Twitter and making Twitter like the ultimate app. And it's like, I think it's called WeChat in China. He says he's trying to build something like that, which is where people do everything on that app over there. They, you know, send money to each other. It's like it's like a mixture of Venmo, PayPal, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all in one app. And that's his vision for Twitter. And that's kind of become my vision for LeoFinance with the Project Blank UI, is just keep incorporating new features like that and make the experience extremely seamless and easy. And you can see that with polls. Like if you've launched a poll, you know how easy it is to launch a poll. Like it's literally, it's as easy as it is on Twitter. So I find polls to be super interesting. And then if you've ever voted on a poll, then you'll see when you cast a vote, it actually casts a custom JSON from your Hive account. So that's the same type of data structure that Splinterlands uses to store data on the Hive blockchain. And we use the same thing. So custom JSON when you cast a vote, and the UI reads and shows back your vote based on what's written to Hive. So that's why we say, you know, these are fully decentralized polls. Like if you want to actually, like if, let's just say that the LeoFinance UI didn't exist, you can look historically at any poll that was run and you can see what Hive accounts voted for what option based on the custom JSON text. Or if you want to spin up your own UI and you want to read LeoFinance polls and you want to read the results back, like let's say you have a different idea for how the UI could look, you can just read that data from Hive like every other Hive blogging interface does with content, and you can read that data back and show polls in your own version. So it's really cool. What we're building here is really cool. Yeah, I mean it's been a lot of work, both from a front end and back end perspective, to build all this stuff. And if you saw polls when they launched day one, so many people were using them that they actually got really slow, and it was a little bit difficult to vote on polls, and you kind of had to wait for a while. So we had to do a huge scaling update to make polls work. That scaling update basically has, you know, reverberating impacts to all aspects of LeoFinance, because it's just, you know, we're building up Leo infra and we're constantly making it bigger, better, faster. And, you know, things like polls kind of lead us down that path. So basically in the last 2 weeks, we've deployed a massive backend update, which included, you know, originally it included like adding polls and adding the ability to write. So this is the other major thing that I think it gets lost since it's so heavily backend work and you don't really see it on the front end. But adding polls actually added the ability for us to do anything with custom JSON. So to incorporate polls, we actually had to build a whole custom JSON machine, which is like the same thing that runs Splinterlands, right? So now that we've got that custom JSON infrastructure, we can actually do anything with custom JSONs. So, you know, if we decide to build another feature that is heavily custom JSON, then we already have the whole backend built, and now we just have to, you know, build it for the front end and then, you know, add a few features to the back end. So the whole infrastructure is there now. It's like creating the skeleton box, and then you can just keep adding to it. So, you know, we're even talking about doing things like gamifying the UI with, you know, like little mini games that you can play. You know, the devs and I were talking yesterday and like kind of spitballing this kind of crazy idea. And, you know, Nomad Soul knows about this too, is spitballing this idea that if anyone here has played like Clash Royale or Clash of Clans on your phone, spitballing this idea that you could create a clan on LeoFinance and you can add users to your clan. And then you can basically compete for like a weekly rewards pool of like, if your clan created the most threads, then you can, you know, earn, you can basically like rank up your clan and then get rewards. And then we could even add NFTs into that. So we are really kind of headed towards this like crazy everything app type of vision. And it's all centered around engagement. Engagement is at the core of everything we're doing now, which ultimately, if you're wondering how that leads to, you know, Leo token value appreciation, that engagement builds that decentralized ad program that we've been building, which, you know, buys and burns Leo. So that decentralized ad program will let anybody upload ads to the UI, and those ads get seen, clicked on, whatever. All that capital goes into the smart contract, which then gets the Leo and burns it. And you know, it's all automated and decentralized, and that's really been, you know, kind of the core driver behind all the stuff we're doing lately, which is just automate everything. You know, like there should be no manual work done here. And if you want to, and in the end, like the end game of all this stuff is that LeoFinance will basically open source the UI and everything. So like in theory, like anyone would be able to just fork the UI and launch their own version, and it all uses the Leo token, and anyone can upload ads, and then it all feeds back into Leo at the end of the day. And we're headed towards like that fully decentralized, fully automated type of system, and that's always been the goal. It's just it's a long journey to get there, but it's like I've always said to I've always said in a lot of different ways, especially to like Taskmaster, who's put it in posts and stuff, but the vision behind Leo is not like 2 years or 5 years. It's like 10-20 years of like building stuff. Like that's where we're headed. So it's all like this very long game type of play. And the new UI is just really kind of bringing that all into focus. It's like really giving me a lot of energy to keep building, because it's just, we're finally seeing it kind of come to real life and reality.
Cool.
That was my 20-minute Leo rant.
Having internet lags.
Uh-oh. Ironically, I am not on my T-Mobile 5G.
Ironically, I am with my stupid cable. That sucks. Yeah, my video and my audio is not synced up at all. But that works out because we are at wrap-up time.
Yeah, we had a lot to catch up on from last 2 weeks.
Indeed. And then Morty said that March 8th was the Cub birthday. So we got a happy
birthday,
belated Cub birthday, and more to come based on the rant Khal just went on. There will be many more birthdays for all things LeoFinance.
100%.
We are in the early stages of building the LeoFinance ecosystem.
Yep.
So more good things to come. Cool. Well, I'm glad we were able to get caught up on all the things, and we should be around next Tuesday for an AMA, and we shall see how things have played out over this week in the crypto universe, with Bitcoin ripping and banks failing and all the good things. And then hopefully by then, all the kingdoms will be ironed out. We'll all be removed from the kingdoms, and we can focus
hopefully by
on
tomorrow
farms.
morning. Tomorrow morning, let's hope.
I like it. Cool. All right. Well,
sweet.
We will see you guys on the next one.
See you guys next week.
Boom.
Peace.